In this tutorial, we're going to sew the puff and pencil slit pants from start to finish. Before we begin, make sure you've transferred all notches, dots, and markings from your pattern onto the wrong side of the fabric. Iron interfacing onto the wrong side of all your waistband facing pieces. Then zigzag or overlock the raw edges of the pant legs, but leave the waist edges and the bottom hems unfinished for now. The bottom and side edges of the facings should also be zigzagged. If you're working with a fabric that frays a lot, it's a good idea to zigzag all edges. Now we'll sew the dots on the back pieces. On the wrong side of the fabric, fold each dot with the right sides together so the dot legs meet. Pin along the fold. Sew from the wide end toward the dot point, and as you approach the point, curve slightly and sew straight off the fabric without backstitching. Tie the thread tails in a small knot close to the point for a clean finish. Press both dots toward the side seams. Place the two front pieces right sides together and sew the crotch curve from the waist down to the crotch point using a 1 cm or 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Press the seam allowance open. Do the same thing for the back pieces, sew the center back crotch curve and press the seam allowance open. Now we'll sew the pant legs together. Lay the back pieces right side up and place the front pieces on top with the right sides down. Pin the side seams, but note the special placement. On the left leg, as you look at the pants, pin from the waist down to the notch at the bottom of the leg, and on the right leg, pin from the notch at the top of the hip down to the notch at the bottom of the leg. These openings will be important for the zipper and the slit later. Then pin the inseams matching the crotch curves carefully. Sew both the inseams and side seams with a 1 cm or 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Press all seam allowances flat and open. Now it's time to place the invisible zipper. This step is easier if you watch it closely, but I'll walk you through it. On the right side seam of the pants, as viewed from the front, sew a temporary seam from the waist down to the hip notch using the longest stitch length. Press the seam allowance open. Place the zipper face down on the wrong side, positioning the center of the zipper exactly over the seam. The top of the zipper slider should sit 1 cm or 3/8 of an inch below the waist edge. Pin or use Wonder Tape to hold it in place. Hand baste the zipper to the seam allowance only, not through the pants themselves. Then remove the temporary stitch with a seam ripper so the zipper opening is free. Unzip the zipper all the way down to the notch and gently move the slider past the notch so it's out of the way for the next step. Now sew the zipper permanently. Switch to your zipper foot. If you have an invisible zipper foot, you can use it, but here I'll describe the regular zipper foot method. Position your needle to the left. Roll the zipper coil open slightly as you sew so you can get close to it. Sew the first side of the zipper from the waist down to the notch, stitching only through the zipper tape and the seam allowance. Then reposition your needle all the way to the right and sew the second side of the zipper the same way. Remember to switch back to your regular presser foot. Zip the zipper back up to bring the slider to the right side. Secure the extra zipper length either by stitching it to the seam allowance or by trimming it off after securing. Next, assemble the waistband facing. Sew the two back facings together at the center back and press the seam open. Do the same with the two front facings at the center front. Place the back facing right side up and lay the front facing right side down on top. Sew the right hand side seam of the facing pieces and press the seam open. Now we're going to attach the facing to the pants. Turn the pants right side out. Place the facing on the outside of the pants with the right sides together, matching center front, center back, and the side seams, including the zipper area. Pin all the way around the waist so the fabric is evenly distributed. Sew the facing to the waist edge with a 1 cm or 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. When sewing across the zipper end, sew as close to the zipper teeth as you can without catching them. Press the seam allowance down toward the facing and cut small notches where the waist curves. Now sew an understitch. Sew the seam allowance to the facing, stitching about 0.2 or 1/8 of an inch from the edge. This helps the facing stay down inside the pants. Turn the facing out to the right side of the pants so that the facing and pants are right sides together. Make sure the understitching is folded down at the zipper. Switch to your zipper foot so you can sew close to the zipper. Start your stitching at the bottom edge of the facing and sew along the zipper with a 0.5 cm or 1/4 of an inch seam allowance to keep the facing from getting too close to the zipper and interfering with the slider. Fold the corners at the zipper and turn the facing to the inside of the pants. Press the facing flat to the wrong side so that the waist edge is neat and straight. Now make the ties. You'll need 4 ties. Cut 4 strips 3.5 centimeters or 1.5 inch wide and 35 centimeters or 13¾ inch long. Fold each strip lengthwise, wrong sides together, and press to create a crease. Unfold, then fold each long edge in towards the center crease and fold the strip back together. One short end should be folded in 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch. The other end will be hidden inside the slit and doesn't need folding. Top stitch along the open edge to secure the tie. Repeat for all 4 ties. Now we're going to sew the slit on each pant leg. Along the slit edge, there's a 2 centimeter or 3/4 of an inch seam allowance starting at the slit notch. Fold this allowance to the inside and press. Measure 7 centimeters or 2 3/4 of an inch down from the notch. Insert the open end of one of the ties between the folded layers with the tie pointing outward. Do the same for the tie on the opposite side of the slit. From the right side, top stitch 1.5 centimeters or half an inch from the edge, starting at the hem sewing up to the notch. Sew straight across the notch and then back down the other side of the slit with the same 1.5 centimeters or half an inch seam allowance. Repeat for the other leg. Now add the eyelets. Each pant leg has 2 eyelets. They sit horizontally at tie height 3 centimeters or 1¼ inch from the pant edge. Mark the placement, cut a small hole, and insert the eyelets following your eyelet kit instructions. Pull the ties through them from the wrong side so they appear on the right side and can be tied at the hem. Now hem the pants. Fold the hem up 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch and press. Fold again 2 centimeters or 3/4 of an inch, press and sew from the right side with the top stitch 1.8 centimeters or 3/4 of an inch from the edge. Finish off with a hook and eye. At the top of the waistband, add a small hook and eye to prevent the zipper from sliding down. Hand sew the hook and eye onto the facing only using small secure stitches. And that's it. Your slit pants are done. We hope you love your new pants.